it's hard to believe so much was going on when I was a part of it. I was in the industry.
How much did you actually see, or did you know about?
Not a lot.
Yeah.
Not a lot, because I had been in, 10 years or so at that point, whatever. And I was so insulated by what I was doing. It was like, this is how this works. So we're just getting loans done.
All right, here we go. Welcome to another episode of Feedback. I'm your man, Nick Alfano. We are constantly bringing in guests in person. I am like 100% committed to not doing Zooms on this podcast if possible. So anytime I get somebody who's local to the Nashville area that's got a powerful story that I know you need to hear, or I convince some of my high-level dudes to fly into Nashville, I snatch them up, we throw them in the chair, and we have a conversation. So today we've got my man, Jamie Steelman. We are going to be unpacking a little bit about who he is, what he does, and we're going to see how he processes feedback. So, welcome to the show, brother. Nice to have you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So, we have been obviously introduced through some mutual friends. I've heard nothing but awesome things. Obviously, to get this far and get into that seat, we've had to have had a bit of a conversation, because if you don't align with our core values, it wouldn't make sense to have a conversation. And I cannot tell the audience enough, those folks listening, that some of the stuff we were talking about, we were almost finishing each other's sentences. It was borderline creepy. So I know I'm 100% accurate in saying, like, we are going to end up doing something together, or there's some massive synergy there. Like, the reality is we both have the same, again, I'll use the word core values, but also just some of the way we, the outlooks and just the things the way we approach things seem to be very similar. So I'm excited. I've heard a brief version of your story to kind of unpack that, because there's some really, again, powerful parts of that I think will resonate with my crowd. So let's kind of get into it. First of all, most people that sit in that chair are in some version of entrepreneurship or business ownership. So let's just tell the guys and girls what line of work you're in, and then we'll kind of back out how you got there. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been amazed at some of the things we have in common and things that we've just been able to talk to a little bit. But, basically, I've been in the mortgage business for coming up on, 29, 30 years now. So a long time, lots of ups and downs, lots of that kind of stuff. But fairly recently, over the last couple of years, I kind of went out on my own, built my own team. So Team Steelman Mortgage at CMG Home Loans. So kind of got my own group backed by a large independent mortgage company, and got 4 or 5 people dedicated to just me and my team, and originating residential loan mortgages, helping people get in homes, helping people invest, and really just helping people learn what real estate can do in their life.
That's awesome. And then, like, obviously there's a lot of versions of guys in the quote unquote mortgage game. Do you 29, 30 years is a long time, right? Yeah. So we'll kind of dive into maybe the 08 crash, right? Or the 08 madness, and then kind of where it's heading now, because I think it's scary for a lot of people. But when you talk about helping people get into maybe even their first home, like, walk me through, because again, from what I know of you, it's more about like that experience, and like how many people have come to you and been like, I don't know if I can even swing this, or I didn't know homeownership was even possible for me.
Yeah.
I come from a generation of people who rented, or, so like, how would you walk when you're walking somebody through their very first set of keys to their home? Like, what does that feel like, and what are you able to do for them that maybe others can't?
Yeah. I mean, over the years, I'd like to say kind of from the start, because I kind of just try to be who I am in what I do. So, I mean, large part of what I do every day is education based. I spend a lot of time with people that can't buy right now, kind of just helping them figure out, how do I get there one day? I tell people all the time when they're kind of like scared to apply, scared to talk about it, that kind of stuff, it's like, I probably talk to 30% of the people are ready to buy. Let's go find a house, buy today. Let's do it. 70% of people aren't quite there yet, either just because of timing, credit, employment, whatever the situation is. But if they'll get started and let me kind of walk them through that, then good things happen at the end. But that's what I spend a lot of time doing, is just sitting down with people and explaining how credit works, how all that kind of stuff works. Because, of course, we don't learn any of that in school. Nobody that goes to regular, public schools education learns one thing about finance, money, how it works, homes, anything like that. So a large part of it's just explaining terms to people and starting to just open their eyes to, they're paying rent. How does that translate into, I could pay that kind of money or more or less and eventually own a home?
Sure.
And why does that matter? Why do I want to own a home? There's a whole generation of people out there that are kind of just thinking, I don't even know what the purpose of owning a home is. What would that even matter? I'm just paying somebody to live here, or I'm paying myself to live here. They don't really even get the equity, the wealth building,
sure.
all the kind of stuff.
Well, what's interesting, if we go back to those numbers, because I was gonna pause you there, but I wanted you to keep going. I don't think I've met, and we know Jeff Suter well, so he's probably in that same camp. But it is very okay. You're now the second human being I've met in the mortgage game, and no offense, maybe I don't know enough. That 70-30 split you just explained. Like, I know a lot of guys that if you are unqualified from the jump because of credit or that time or income or all the boxes, if you don't check those boxes, well, you don't make up 70% of their conversations because they're moving on, right? And so what I love hearing and what I hope everyone's hearing right now is if you walked up and had a conversation with my man here and you're not qualified, you don't just get like the cold shoulder, like, I got to move on and find more qualifieds. I got bills to pay. I got money to make. It's no, let me walk you through what's possible for you. I love that you said educate, by the way, because I think that's all sales should be. Sales is not NLP and persuasion and psychology and tactics. It's educate this consumer on what's possible for them if they chose to work with you. And if it makes sense for them, then they'll choose to work with you, right? Yeah. But to your point, maybe it's not where they're at in their journey and they can't work with you right now. What would you? Again, here's the question: what would you do then? You know they're unqualified. You know they likely won't be qualified for. In your game, it could be 2 years. They don't even have the tax returns to play the game.
Sure.
And what do you do with that lead? Do you? It's not a lead to most guys. So why have you decided that it's okay to not okay, it's like part of your ethos to actually spend the time with those people to show them what's possible, even if they don't convert to a quote-unquote sale for 2.5 years.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. You learn having some longevity in any industry. You're going to find out that it's not about today's sale. It's not about a sale, or I was telling you the story the other day. I was listening to somebody speak, and then somebody raised their hand and asked the question, like, how do I convince my leads to buy from me? And he's like, yeah, I'll stop you right there. That's your problems. You're trying to convince people. You're trying to sell people. What we're doing is educating.
Yep.
We're meeting them where they're already at. We're on the phone. We're standing wherever we're standing having a conversation about buying a home, so we know what we're talking about. I don't need to sell you on the concept at that point. I need to talk to you and tell you how things work and see if you want to go down that path further. And the longevity of being in the business, you learn that everything's cyclical and people come around, business changes, rates change, the business changes how it works. So you're just going to be there to explain them the changes that have happened as they're moving along and help them get there when they need to. So a large part of my process is not really just telling people how to buy a home. It's really educating them overall, talking about their budget, talking about
you're talking about things
everything
above and beyond home ownership. You're talking about just life principles.
Yeah.
Like you said, they don't teach these things, unfortunately. And so when I went to law school, one of my biggest hangups at the end of the 4 years was, you guys aren't teaching anybody on, like, even just QuickBooks. Like, so I went to a non-accredited school. So the reality was, and we knew this going in, and we all took the same test. I sat with guys from Harvard and Stanford when I took my bar exam, but because of the school I went to being unaccredited, the chances of going to a big firm are slim to none. So the reality is everybody who finally graduates from there is going to, quote unquote, hang their own shingle. And so you know that everyone coming through your program is going to have to go out into business on their own, and they don't even know what a spreadsheet or QuickBooks, like, they don't even know how to manage money. They really don't know how to run a business. Yes, they're a lawyer, and I would drive me crazy. So I'm sure, to your point, why don't they teach these basic, like, you're teaching people life lessons that in this conversation, we feel should be run of the mill. Everyone should know.
Yeah, but that's what I spend a lot of time doing. It's just kind of explaining. I mean, take a credit report. When's the first time you saw a credit report? Ever. Yeah. Usually when you went to apply for probably a mortgage, I mean, you walk in and buy a car, they don't even show you your credit report. They just tell you what your score is, drive the car off the lot. So even just sitting down and saying, here's a credit report. And nowadays with technology, we've got freecreditreport.com, Credit Karma. Everybody uses different systems. So it's really just like, let's sit down and let's talk about how this works. Just basic starters before we even, go into the home stuff. So, I mean, you've got doctors that have gotten degrees and that are, doing surgery on people that really don't even know how a credit report works. It's not part of what they had to do to become a doctor. Yeah. So it's just basic, sit down, explain how things work. And then, like you were talking about, the 70% that aren't ready, a big part of my job is building a team that can support those people. One of the toughest things we face in homeownership at all is people getting discouraged. That 70% saying, oh man, I can't do anything. And that sounds like a lot to have to worry about all this. I'm just going to keep renting. I'm not even going to think about 2 years down the road. So really sitting down, building a relationship with people and saying, what's at the end of the rainbow is worth it.
Sure.
Like let's sit down and let's figure out how to get you there.
And are you building like cohesive strategies or plans or some
yeah.
sort of journey, right? Customer journey to get them ready in 2 years? Right?
Yeah. So when I built this team, I've always been really big on trying to follow up with people, but it gets really hard at some point with databases and things to keep up with people down the road because you are trying to deal with the day-to-day, what's in front of you. So I've built a team and I have, people that are a little bit better at spreadsheets and that kind of stuff.
Because you're not? Are you saying you're not? Yeah.
I'm not a huge spreadsheet, kind of guy. Now math all day long. That's what I do with mortgages.
But once it hits an Excel sheet, you just fall over or a Google Doc?
I just can't create the Excel spreadsheet. I can follow it good.
Okay. So all the formulas that go into the back end of a data sheet. Okay, gotcha.
So that's what I hired somebody to do, and she's great at that kind of stuff. So lots of calendar reminders and updates, and just kind of checking in with people over that period of time because we've got a very strategic plan to help get them there depending on what it is they're waiting for. So then it's just a matter of following up with them and saying, have you been able to do this? If we're able to do that, let's move on to the next step. But then if we haven't for some reason, all right, let's figure out why we haven't got this step done in the last 3 months. Let's move on to the next one. So follow up is key. And, when I talk to somebody and they don't qualify that day, what's amazing is usually if you give them just a little bit of encouragement, they can get on to having little victories along the way.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that because, in this world that we live in where it's all instant gratification, if you're trying to future pace a 2-year target, and you can paint this customer journey as sexy as you want, but there's still work, right? And there's these little milestones that need to be achieved in a timely manner along the way. How are you, I'm genuinely curious on this one, how receptive is your audience to actually checking those boxes and keeping up with the journey? Yeah.
It gets a little bit better the more we work on the systems, but it's probably one of the most frustrating disappointment, points that we run into.
On your side, right? Yeah. These people don't want it? How do they? Like,
I told them what to do. All you had to do was do this, do this, and we get there. What is the problem? Yeah. So it's, and it's just trying to find that little bit of encouragement and instant gratification. We do live in that world. So it's kind of like, I want that. You can't have that. Okay, I'll move on to something else.
Do you find yourself sometimes wanting it for them more than they want it for them?
Of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How do you process that?
And it's really tough being, 51 years old. I want it for a lot of younger people.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, man, if somebody would have just told
me this at 25, game over. Yeah.
Heck yeah. I'm like, man, if you would have just told me this, I'd probably own 10 houses by now, and I'd be sitting back with all kinds of wealth. And so that's the frustrating part is just, and when we try, like you said, our job is to educate and to guide people. We can't force them. We can't say, can't shake them, grab them and go, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So we just really try to start from the beginning, educating so that they know, a no is not a permanent no forever. It may be no right now, but let's figure out how to get you to a yes.
At the end of the day, they're, this line, no one really cares about all the cool things and all this. They care how you make them feel.
Right.
And everyone's going to remember that they didn't qualify. They had the door slammed in their face, but this guy kept it open, kept stepping through it, kept saying, come with me, kept showing me the way. Basically, like to me, there's only two things you need to get across in any conversation, right? Mm-hmm. Is authority and empathy. And like you said, the authority speaks for itself. Well, clearly I'm a homeowner. Clearly I'm in the mortgage space for 30 years. Yeah. So the authority is instant. But I think where a lot of people are missing is the empathy part of like, I genuinely care about you winning.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes I care about it more than you do, it seems. But like, I can get you there, and I actually care that we get you there. Yeah. And that is, to me, that's what you're delivering in spades, where I think most people are dropping the ball and just the commitment to the long game. Because, again, we also live in that same world called instant gratification. So for you to say, hey, I'm going to help these 27 people that may never buy from me, may never do the steps to actually qualify, but I'm going to keep pouring into them from a place of abundance, and let's just see what happens. Yeah. If anything, I help them with some life lessons. And if they convert, they convert. If not, that's okay too.
Yeah, and that's what we hear a lot. The success stories are, I called last year somebody and they said, hey, man, your credit's not good enough. Give me a call in 6 months. Period. Done. End of conversation.
Yeah.
So when you just even take the time to say, I've had people go like, man, nobody ever even asked me before.
Yeah.
Like, why is your credit this way? They don't even get that question. It could have just been something they went through in their life. And that's a segue to be there for somebody. I mean, I've met people that I've, had conversations completely separate from mortgage once I found out what they were going through. And then I realized we've got a common ground there of something we may have went through in the past. And I'm like, man, I remember being young, having that happen, not having the support system at home.
Well, the reality is everybody has a blip on their credit, no matter the size or how many blips you have. And to your point, it's kind of like having your integrity question, and then you don't even get to speak for yourself. Like you said, someone's like, dude, you're sitting at a 580. Call me when you're at a 680 minimum.
Exactly.
And you're like, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm not a horrible person. Like, please, you know, so yeah. Because we all have that. Like you said, everybody could find a time in their life where their FICO score was not quite up to par. Some of you listening now, and you just want to be heard. Everyone wants to be heard. And then you'd like a roadmap to please fix it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's what stops people in their tracks usually is like, okay, you actually want to know why I'm here, and I want to, you know, you can tell me how to get there.
Yep.
That's the big stories, and that's usually what I hear. And I would say, you know, you were talking about like, where do you get that from? I would say probably the first time that I was in the industry where we started seeing more and more refinances, which we're probably coming up on a time where that's going to happen again.
Sure.
I remember sitting down with so many people and them saying, you know, I'd say this is about something about their home or their rate or how this process works. And they're like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm like, you didn't go over any of this when you bought the house?
I signed the thing. I got the keys. I moved my furniture.
Yeah. And so that's what started playing in my mind, you know, probably 20 years ago.
The lack of education, because it put a lot of people, like, look at the '08 boom, like, right? Because people all got into these ARMs, right? These adjustable rate mortgages. They got in these crazy balloon payments that they don't understand. All they knew was, just like buying a car, these guys that are like, as long as I can get the monthly comfortable for you, are you in? And it's like, do you realize you're going to pay $40,000 for a $17,000 car or, you know, or more? No, but the monthly's safe.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can do that.
Cool.
Everything else is just I'm not even paying attention.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so that was a big thing I realized. People are just like, I don't even know what that is. And I'm like, but you own a home. You had to have gone through this before. And that's when I finally started going, man, there's some disconnect right here. Yeah, you shouldn't be coming to me and asking me these questions if the person on the front end did their job. I mean, thank goodness some of them didn't. I might not have business if everybody did what they're supposed to do. But just sitting down and explaining, you know.
So then I don't have to ask, but I would imagine your process on the back end is equally as educational and extensive, whereby once they close with you, we've still got to go over, or maybe right prior to closing, right? Like when you sit down to sign docs, you're actually breaking down the key elements of this agreement and what it means to them, right? Because again, to your point, everyone's missing the ball there.
Yeah.
Oh, escrow's done. We're good. Check's clear. Okay, cool.
That's it.
I mean, like I'm done. I'll never talk to that human again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, we're having conversations. Yeah, throughout the whole process, we're having, you know, meetings a couple days before closing to go over everything and make sure this is how much you're bringing to closing. This is what it's covering.
Yeah.
This is what your payment's going to be. This is when payments start. Not only that, this is where you're going to mail payments or set up payments when you want to do that. All that kind of stuff. So
what about tips for them to buy it down early? You know, like you'd hear a lot of people either getting 15 years or paying double payments against their 30, and just showing them what's possible. Again, like, hey, by the way, this is minimum payment, right? What's possible for you if you were to chip away at X, Y, and Z is this. You know, so I mean, I love what you're doing. Obviously, you know, my initial reaction to the desire to help people, whether they can ever reciprocate or not, which to me is the only definition of true giving.
Sure.
You know, like if you're a true giver, you're literally like, if there's value I can add to this person, which is I'm a master at this game, I'm going to educate them at the very least. And I have no desire. They've already shown me with their FICO score, income, and whatever. Like there's no instant reciprocation, if ever. But I'm still going to do it. So where I'm going with this, my initial reaction of you is that boy was raised right. Like that boy was raised right. So like, I don't know if we have to go all back to infant or childhood, but like at some point somebody instilled a value in you that you held on to tightly, right? And now you're sharing it with the world, which is I'm just going to help people, and my man will take care of the rest. I'm going to help people. You know what I mean? So talk to me about, run me through some of your story.
Yeah. I mean, I would say a lot of that is just a lot of influence. I had a lot of influence from a lot of different places. So I was, you know, I was a kid that was born to a kid. My mom was 14 when she had me. Oh. So really young, and we had a different kind of relationship growing up.
She's almost a friend. Yeah. When you get to like teenagers, right?
Yeah. It was really wild just having somebody that young. So I had a lot of people, luckily, throughout the years, and you know, different stories here and there with coaches, teachers, specific people that really taught me different ways to care about people, and showed me just, you know, completely unconditional love was the biggest thing.
Where'd you grow up?
Nashville. So, I actually grew up around here. Yeah.
By the way, folks, for those of you listening, that's called a unicorn out here.
I talk to people all the time, and I'm like, hey, why are y'all, you know, moving to Nashville? And they're like, whatever reason. Like, when did you move here? And I'm like, I was born here. And they're like, no way.
Prove it.
Yeah. That's not like born in Nashville, right? And I'm like, no, actually I was. Yeah. It's very rare. Very rare.
Well, but that does explain, to your point, these people that just poured into you, you know, and the support system you had. Because what I've seen, and I grew up originally in the South, moved to Cali for way too long, and I begged my wife for years, like, we have to get back to some version of the South, because we raise our kids like we're still in the South, but it doesn't really jive with Cali politics or people. And like we moved out here 4 years ago, and it's just been all she said is like, I wish we would have done this sooner.
Wow.
Just because to watch my kid thrive in an environment, to your point, where faith and family are the first things you think about. Not anyway. I can go on and on about Callie, but let's dive back into babies having babies. Your mom's 14, so you've got a young mother figure.
Yeah, young parents.
But when you're talking about the community that helped raise you, or were there as a support system, were you active in sports, or was this your church, or what? Who were these people in particular?
Yeah. So my parents were young. My mom was 14, dad was 20, which that's today's world that would be what the hell's going on basically. Sure. but different time. But grew up playing all kinds of sports, and so I was really big when I had kids. I had 3 boys. And really big in them just being in some kind of activities. Didn't have to be a sport, but I'm a big believer in, just the team concept. So many life lessons through sports and through teams that just told them they had to be involved in something. Didn't matter what it was. So I played, basketball, baseball, football all growing up, all the way through high school.
Did you land on one eventually? Like, did you have...
I loved basketball probably the most, but I was the worst at it.
Okay.
So
all right.
Yeah.
So you landed on it. It did not quite land on you.
Definitely.
I'm with you there.
Definitely.
Right.
So played baseball growing up a lot, and that's probably what I should have done if I wanted to go on and play in college, but I didn't. Kind of a whole side story. My dad was a pitcher in high school and ended up signing with the Cincinnati Reds right out of high school, and then had he's in the gym one day his senior year, and the push-up bleachers, they pull out push-up. He's talking to somebody, had his elbow, rested on the bleachers, and they went to close him. Didn't see him standing back there talking, and smashed his elbow.
No way.
In there. And so this is late 60s. And
we had those at my high school. Yeah, where it's like the basketball. So you can do whatever. You can do all kinds of events there. So you accordion them essentially, and he got caught in the accordion of the bleachers.
Got caught in there.
His elbow of all things, which is
in the throwing arm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ended up having
I shouldn't be laughing, but yeah.
Oh no, it's crazy. And 39 pieces of cartilage. Wow. Had this massive scar, that they did surgery back then, and so career was over. But point being, I had a little bit of natural ability in baseball, looking back as an adult now, but as a teenager, I was like, I like this better, so I'm going to keep doing it. So did all 3, but, ended up just, finishing high school and going on and doing other stuff. But just, man, I kept looking back, and different teachers I had, different coaches I had were just such a huge influence. I mean, I never would have finished high school if it wasn't for a teacher that I had, an English teacher I had, because I basically quit. My sophomore year of high school, I just said, man, I'm done. This is stupid.
How so? Was that the actual talk track? This is not for me, or this is dumb?
Yeah,
okay.
I was just running around making bad decisions.
Yeah.
I mean, I was 14, 15 years old. I was already drinking.
Yeah.
At that time, secretly, running around with buddies, skipping school all the time. My parents loved us dearly, but they both had dropped out of high school. Eventually, other family members did. So there just wasn't that support system of, and they worked all the time, so I was at home alone a lot. Not all their fault, just kind of, not playing the blame game.
Sure.
But just, doing that kind of stuff. So
no, crazy thing is your parents, it's all benevolent. Even when, cause everybody can look back in their childhood and find some version of trauma or something, right? And they can play it up. But, most parents, I can't say all, are not intentionally causing harm on their children. Sure. Like you said, it sounds like a dual income household. They both got to get to work to allow you to play these sports, et cetera.
Sure.
And so they're not fully present, and maybe when they are, they're stressed out about money or fighting, and it's par for the course because they didn't know what they didn't know. You know what I mean? So let's fast forward a little bit. Baseball or basketball, baseball, so sports. When did you stop playing sports? Right out of high school, or did you try to continue it?
Finished up first couple years of high school.
Okay.
Yeah, and then just did a lot of loved sports enough, so I kept doing church leagues and adult leagues and all that stuff in my real young years. But through high school, when I kind of just got way off track and just said I'm just quitting, I kind of stopped playing sports. But I had a teacher that I ran into that basically drugged me back to school, not physically, but basically, man. I mean, she was amazing. She was a girls track coach and an English teacher. So the funny thing wasn't like a coach I had, but just a teacher that just saw I was doing something I shouldn't be doing, got me to come back the next semester and said, hey, I want you to focus on your classes. I want you to check in with me during your lunch hour. I want you to come in here. I've got papers for you to grade and different stuff like that. So she literally monitored what I was doing all the time.
Is she still around here anywhere? Or?
I think so. I hadn't talked to her in a couple of years. But,
what's her name so we could shout her out?
Yeah,
that's huge.
Lisa Sanders.
Lisa Sanders. Yeah. All right. So maybe we get this podcast in front of her. But that's the power of just caring about somebody. Again, it's at that point, if ever, you have nothing that you can offer her other than please do what I say so I know that this is actually helping you.
Yeah.
But she just leaned into what we're going to call it a troubled youth.
Yeah.
And said, I'm gonna try and keep this kid on track because I know how important it is, and maybe he thanks me one
Big
day
time.
and maybe not. But yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, she made sure I was on track, got me to realize some things I was interested in. I ended up realizing that I liked writing. And it kind of mixed sports, so I got to where I was just jotting down a lot of sports stories and that kind of stuff.
So like the next Ray Barone, were you a big fan?
Something like that.
Yeah, okay.
Something like that.
Also, I want to play on your dad
Yeah.
joke because I don't even know if you know, but when you hit a certain age, 40 plus, dad jokes become part of you. So twice now you said she kept me on track.
Yeah.
And then you said she was a track coach. So I'm just making sure that my
good.
listeners are grabbing this gold right now that's
Yeah.
coming through you. Yeah.
Dad jokes are ingrained in me now.
Oh,
I can't,
dude,
I can't get away from
I
them.
can't not do them. I almost can talk in them. I can do a whole conversation in just dad jokes, and my kids hate it.
Of course.
I love it.
As they should.
Yeah. All right, so let's fast forward. So you get through high school, right?
Yeah.
Because of this phenomenal angel in your life. You are not playing sports anymore, other than like church leagues, adult
Sure.
leagues. Is real estate exactly where you ran, like Mortgage World, or what was the plan there?
Gosh, no.
Okay.
So we'd probably need a couple hours to tell the whole version. But,
Okay.
I tried college a couple different times and just couldn't really stay on track first year or two. So went to Western Kentucky for a little while, then tried some, where's that? Then Vol State, Nashville, Texas, closer stuff, trying to work and survive at the same time. And it was a little bit more than I could handle at the time. Then ended up having a child. My oldest son, Ryan, was born. So I was working multiple jobs. School kind of fell to the side, just trying to pay bills and do that kind of thing. And a couple years into that company I was working for, so I was working for a vending company, filling up vending machines at 4 o'clock in the morning at different factories, Home Depot and stuff, like the big vending room where everybody goes. So I was doing that, and I loved it because at the time I didn't have to talk to people. And I was really, really introverted at the time, like getting out of high school and stuff. So I'm going in every now and then. I just got to wave at a guy, and I'm just doing my own thing all day.
4 a.m. vending machine filler.
Yeah.
I'm sure you see one person a month. Yeah.
Yeah, loading trucks. Didn't have to talk to nobody. And at the time, I thought, man, this is the best thing in the world. I haven't got to mess with people. So, that company sold out to a large conglomerate.
Yeah.
They'd been a small mom and pop shop for like 45 years, and so they sold out. Kept everything in the business except the employees. Didn't need us. So they're like, yeah, have a good time. We'll see you later. Don't need you anymore.
Oof.
So really weird time in my life. Started working a couple of part-time jobs, and I had a friend that we went to church with at the time that was a headhunter. Said, hey, come in, take these personality tests, these different tests. I'll tell you what you probably need to get into long-term. So took a couple of them, and she's like, hey, you need to get into sales.
Which ones did you get into? Or which one did you, what tests? Because my audience probably knows some of them.
I've taken DISC tests.
DISC, Colby, right?
Yeah,
Like
I don't remember back then.
16 personalities, which is Myers-Briggs, right? Enneagram. I'm just trying to think of the main ones, right? That show up a lot.
And this is like early 20s, so I don't even remember what all.
So that person says, hey, by the way, you're not an introvert. You're an extreme extrovert. You need to communicate with human beings.
Yeah, and I literally laughed.
Yeah, I would too.
I mean, that's crazy. I was like, take it again, retest, do something, and she's like, no, this is really what you need to do. So she gets me lined up with a CB radio company that's mostly selling to, music tour groups that, communicate with them, tow trucks, that kind of stuff, and just selling a little bit. So I do that for about 3 months, and Nextel comes out.
And they wipe you out.
Changes the whole industry completely as I'm trying to learn the industry. And so then go back, and she's like, I've got this mortgage company that's hiring, and I'm like, what's a mortgage? Like, I don't own a home.
It's even spelled weird.
Yeah. I don't even know what
Why
that
is there
is.
a T in
She's
there?
like, just trust me. Go over there, talk to them, blah, blah, blah. So one thing, next thing, do this. I walk in there, find out what's going on. They hand me a phone book. And they're like, here you go find some customers.
Old school. That's like Glengarry Glen Ross. That's before that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Such a real movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally real. But yeah, I mean, before the do not call list, all that kind of stuff. And so I'm like, learn mortgages in the fire. And so that's kind of how I fell into mortgages, and then just started learning a little bit, and had some people I probably didn't want to learn the mortgage business from along the way.
I'm sure,
then I had some.
Yeah, but you learn what not to do.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'll never be that guy.
I'll never be.
Yeah.
I found a couple of people that really, helped me learn the right way to do things, and then I think over time, who I am got to shine through, and I went, okay, I can use this to help this, and wow, this is a cool industry because now I can really help people. So over the years, it kind of came from like, all right, this is a cool job, to this is a mission.
Yeah.
This is what I can do, and I can make a difference doing it. So, yeah. So it was kind of a lot of little stuff in between there, but that's basically how I got into the mortgage business, and then went through, all the subprime days until 2008 happened that you referenced earlier.
Yeah.
And that's when I really learned about the industry, how it worked.
Did you watch that movie, The Big Short?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, how accurate was it?
A little bit too accurate.
Pretty impressive, right?
Yeah.
Scary. I mean,
Yeah.
they were, and not only the data they presented, but the manner in which they presented the data, I felt it was digestible to even, like, I hate to say simpleton, but, again, well, let's just say someone who's never even gone in your world. I'm sure you unpacked it different than I did because I've never been in mortgage.
Sure.
But I guess what I'm saying is they did a really good job giving it to the masses and having everybody go, no way.
Yeah.
No way that happened.
Yeah.
By the way, those of you listening, not only did it happen, but it's happening again
Yeah.
in various forms, and there's a big one coming. So
It's a good movie to go back and watch. And and to talk about the accuracy of it, what's really cool is we have to do annual training once a year for our federal test. And the lady that does our group training, she actually brings that movie in and shows different clips, stops and talks about the part of the licensing and stuff that we're talking about, shows what happened in that movie,
Wow.
almost as a constant reminder, like, this is what we're supposed to be doing. Don't let this kind of stuff happen.
Sure.
And that's been, 3 or 4 years running that she's done that, this instructor we've had. So, to go to the accuracy of that movie and how it really played out and how it, So
and they made it entertaining because the subject matter in itself is kind of blah, right?
Completely.
Maybe you might have liked it because you're in that world, but for most of us, like, I wouldn't have ever found that interesting. But I just think they did a fantastic job. But I always love hearing from guys in that world, like, how much of that was smoke. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's incredibly accurate. It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe so much was going on when I was a part of it. I was in the industry.
How much did you actually see, or did you know about?
Not a lot.
Yeah.
Not a lot, because I had been in, 10 years or so at that point, whatever. And I was so insulated by what I was doing. It was like, this is how this works. So we're just getting loans done. And I just walk in the office one day and they're like, hey, the FBI just closed the doors on, Taylor Whitaker and Bean. This closed. Yeah. I'm like, what do you mean? They closed the doors? Like, they're doing these investigations. And like, all this is happening over just hours, and it's
So
like,
did you have any personal, I wouldn't say friends because you probably didn't align, but did you have associates that you were constantly, competitive with that were quote unquote, like taken out by this?
Oh, definitely. They lost
yeah.
their jobs
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. Absolutely. Oh,
So
yeah.
the craziest thing about like a Ponzi scheme or a house of cards like that is the only guy that really ever knows is the guy at the very top.
Yeah.
Like even the number two has no idea. So like, when I ask that question, most people can't say, yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen some things,
Yeah.
because the reality is nobody knows except the top guy. When he pulls his Jenga piece, it's game over.
Yeah.
Everything's
Yeah.
just gone.
And that's the hindsight's 2020. That's where that comes from. Because
Yeah.
looking back now, you're like, oh man, why didn't I ever take the time? Because now that we've been through that, I'll take the time and go, we got a new program. We're doing this. Where's the checks and balances to make
Yeah.
sure these people can really qualify?
Yep.
Or what's going on with, buybacks and all that kind of stuff. So it's, looking back, I can go, that didn't make a lot of sense if we really looked at it from that way. But when you're in, like you said, when you're just doing.
What about
the thing.
technology that you guys are up against too? Because the
Oh,
reality is, someone could even spin up a fake. If you say like, show me proof of income, and they send you over some paper on a fax, you can call BS if something looks fishy. So you say, okay, cool, pull up your account live right now on a screen share. I mean, I've seen it where people can create a fake looking chase.com and go into their bank account to show that they're flush, and they don't have two nickels to rub together, and then they qualify for the house that they think they can afford.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are you guys fighting tech on? I mean, what's
Huge.
yeah. I'm sure
Yeah.
you're seeing a lot more than I'm describing.
There's so much fraud out there, and it's like everything else. I always heard it, because I'm a big sports fan. With drug testing and stuff, they always say the bad guys are a couple of steps ahead. They figure out what to do, and then we have to figure out how to stop it. But they're already working on 2 other untraceable things before you get to that. And so our industry's that way. So, too, the mortgage business and all the technology, you can create everything now. And I mean, trying to figure out when you've got fraud and when you don't is really tough if they're really good at it.
Well,
We have cases every month.
Yeah, my argument to these guys that are spending, like, you wake up every day and all your effort and energy goes into these, like, genius ways to be a shithead.
Yeah.
But what if you can monetize that another way too and not be a shithead? Because all that brain power, capacity, particular skill set, let's give it to them. They still have to have some skill set. What if you package that up and used it to help people instead of hurt people?
Yeah.
It like blows my mind. I'm like every day, because what kind of life is that? Always looking over your shoulder because the last 35 people you transacted with, you screwed over.
Oh yeah.
How you know what I mean? And if you're good enough to pull the wool over someone's eyes continuously, you're probably good enough to also convince them to buy something that actually benefits them.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's the little things, and then there's these, like you said, there's these major elaborate full-time job,
Yeah, it's
wasting
their
away
life
from-
mission.
Yeah.
It's like I'm only gonna do evil with
Yeah.
this genius brain of mine,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be good evil.
It's gonna be
pretty
good.
cool. Yeah, it's mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the family life. So, you know, I want to say you were pretty young when you had Ryan.
Yeah.
How old were
20.
you? Exactly. So I think that's where we aligned a little bit too. I had my first baby at 20.
Yeah.
I was just turning 21, but my wife was 20. And to your point, it was interestingly enough maybe not as taboo for our age, but maybe nowadays it would be weird. I was almost excited because I actually have obviously being that age a 21-year-old now. She'll be 22 in a month. And I'm like, man, if she has babies as young as we did, well, I'll be a granddad soon. And you're a granddad, right?
Yes,
Which
sir.
is crazy to say.
Yeah.
If you see this guy, you'd be like this. Well, you can see him because this is a video too. I remember my first podcast. My man is a grandfather. So part of me was excited for that. And the sad thing is we almost kind of cultivated my two daughters. And they were like, I kind of want to follow, we've been high school sweethearts. We've been together for 20 years. So they had that notion that they were going to marry their first love and have babies at a young age. Didn't happen for either of them. And part of me is like, whew, dodged a bullet. But part of me also is like, it would be awesome to have a little baby run around that I could get hopped up on sugar and throw him back to mom.
Yeah.
So 20 years old, you have your first kid. Let's fast forward to where you're at now, because I know now you're in a blended family, right? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure. And you're right. Having a grandkid right now, at first we're like, oh my God, you're having a kid.
How old's
now,
grandbaby?
7.
Boy or girl?
And then girl.
Nice.
And then we just had another child just had one, so is almost 2 months old.
But the 7-year-old girl owns you.
Oh
I bet.
man, I couldn't say no if I tried. I mess with my wife all the time. Like, you are doing. She's like, tell me the last time you told her no.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, shut down. You got me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I probably never will. So let's
never
just
will.
go ahead. Let's just talk about that now.
It's
Let's
not
get that
gonna
out.
happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
All
it's
right.
really cool. But yeah, I mean, blended family. We've been together 15 years.
Congrats.
So,
Unheard of. Yep.
yeah. And at one point we had 5 teenagers in the home at one time. So I don't. People used to be like, what were y'all thinking? Because I've got 3, she's got 3. Almost the Brady Bunch. 3 boys on my side, 2 girls and a boy on her side.
Does that boy know he messed it up? He messed up the
yeah,
opportunity for
yeah.
a TV show. Does
all
he feel
the
bad
things.
about it?
All the things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, really different. And we've got a kind of unique story as well. So we've known each other since we were 7 years old.
Wow.
Kind of like family friends, never dated. She used to make jokes all the time that she used to tell my parents how much she loved me. And she had these huge crushes on me. And I never believed her. I used to just mess with her all the time. Like, that's a great story, but just stop it. We were just all friends or whatever. And we're unpacking. We moved in our new house about 6 years ago. And she pulled out some stuff, childhood boxes and stuff, and she found a little journal notebook where she was practicing writing her name
With
as
your
Stacey
last name?
Stillman.
Yeah, buddy.
And it's
That's when you know it's
dude,
real.
like
Yeah.
6th or 7th grade. So I'm like, okay. I mean, huge compliment to me. I'm glad. That makes me feel really good. I'm like, wow, you did like me.
I just want to know real quick, was there one of those letters that, because we're similar in age, so we could say this, where you, remember when they did the thing, that, like it folded up
yeah.
like origami and it was 4 things?
different choices
Yeah,
or
and it was
whatever?
different choices. And then like, the classic, like, do you like me, check yes or no? And then
Yeah.
they would send back like a maybe, and you're like,
Yeah. I don't think she ever got to that.
Yeah, she didn't
was
develop
doing
that
it all-
far?
Yeah,
Okay.
she was just doing it quietly.
well, no, she went straight to marriage, first of
Yeah.
all. So you
That's-
might have a bit of a, I don't know what you're dealing with there, stage 5 clinger. But it's all good now, obviously. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So how'd you reconnect? How'd you...
We both got married, had kids. She moved to small little town outside of like Knoxville, so a couple hours away. And so she was down there, and we kind of just stayed in touch as family friends. We'd run into each other when she was back home visiting family, and hey, how are you doing? How's your family? She was good friends with both my sisters, so we kind of all, had been family friends forever. And so it was just kind of cool. We'd stay in touch, and then I think she makes the joke that I called her one time asking her if, they were interested in buying a house. I don't remember how the conversation went, but something came up about mortgages, and we started talking, and she actually said, I'm actually going through a divorce right now, blah, blah, blah. And so we just started talking, and probably talked for about a year before we actually like dated and said, hey, let's just, see where this goes. And moved pretty fast. She moved here. We got married right away because we didn't want to bring all the kids into the same house before we were married. So we did that, and it's kind of been.
How many are still in the house now? Is it still hectic?
Just one.
Okay. Oh,
Just
wow.
one, yeah.
Almost empty nesters.
Yeah, she's 22. She got out of cosmetology school last year, and so she's got a little shop that she took over from my father-in-law that passed away. That was a hairstylist for about 50 years and was kind of saving her a seat, but she was still in cosmetology school when he passed, but left her. He has a place in Green Hills, so she's out there learning that, and huge opportunity for her.
Absolutely, especially Green Hills.
Yeah, huge opportunity. And so she's still at home while she's learning. You know, she got out of cosmetology school, and we're like, hey, you haven't really worked a lot because you went through high school and then cosmetology school, and now here's a business.
Ready, set, go.
Go run a business, deal with the public, everything. So we're
talking like Green Hills, right?
Oh yeah,
like, for those of you that don't know the Nashville area, Green Hills is like the bouge of the bouge out here in Nashville.
Yeah, she's like on Hillsborough Road,
yeah,
right there in the middle of everything.
Oh, yeah.
So nice. So she's learning that.
So
and it'll be
huge opportunity.
Oh,
I mean, because she's going to get not only traffic but quality traffic that she can have some clients for life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And September will be a year. So she's had a lot of clients that came back from her grandfather, and then she's developed her clientele and started. So it's been a really cool experience. But yeah, she's still at home for a little while until she decides where she wants to be. The commute from Murfreesboro to Green Hills is a little tough.
I mean, no traffic, 35, 30-ish, right?
Yeah.
But traffic, I'm sure.
So she goes in at like 6 a.m. and just waits to open up at 9, just because the traffic's such a mess.
And it might even wait until 9 o'clock. By the way, as a unicorn, you must hate that. So I've only been out here 4 years, and I feel I can be protective because I'm protective of the South, but like I am so frustrated with the lack of infrastructure and the amount of people moving here right now. I'm like, I can't imagine with somebody who's seen this thing develop to the rate that it's developed. Like, and at any point, like my house to downtown Nashville is no traffic, 14 minutes.
Yeah.
And when I first moved here, 17, 18, no big deal. But now it's just like, it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
So
There's both sides of growing up here and seeing that growth, because it's kind of like, this is nuts, and it's not, and we're not ready for it, no matter how much happens. But then there's also the part of me that I always tell people, like I grew up here, and I'm a huge sports fan, so there was no Tennessee Titans, no Nashville Predators, no.
You guys gonna get a baseball team
anytime
like soon?
Tootsies or something. It was like no
What's the minor league team? They do really well.
Sounds.
They're actually doing the home run derby there for the All Stars.
Are they?
Yeah. They just landed that. So I mean.
Yeah. And they're working on a baseball team.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
There's actually like an organization called the Nashville Stars that's trying to make it happen.
You've got soccer too. You've got NSC now, and they built their own stadium, right? So we're actually going to see Green Day there in about 10 days.
That's going to be really
at Geodis, and Geodis is cool because the way they build these soccer, because they're not football popular, right? So they're like 35,000 capacity. So there's really no bad seat, the way that they're structured.
That stadium's really cool.
It's a cool stadium.
Yeah. I went there. I don't know anything about soccer. My kids played when they were younger, and I actually coached soccer. And I'm like, I don't even know the rules.
Yeah.
I mean, they were like 5, 6, 7 years old.
Oh, that's like Bumblebee bunch ball. Yeah.
Just a big pod of kids running around. Like, just try to kick the ball into that square thing over there, and we'll be fine.
Yeah.
But went to a game out there, and that stadium has great seating. It's really nicely developed. So it was cool.
Yeah, and then obviously they broke ground on the new Titan Stadium. That's going to be like a 2.5-year gig. I know.
Yeah.
I know it's disrupting parking, which is already a nightmare.
It's
the
a
current,
mess.
Yeah, the current Titan Stadium. So
yeah.
But when they bring that, if they bring it anywhere near the quality of like, I will say this about Cali, that SoFi, where the Chargers and Rams play, that's a whole other level. It's supposed to be top notch. That's another level.
Yeah.
They barely finished that right before I exited California, and I hardly go back. But it is impressive.
Yeah.
So if they can touch that, I mean, that's going to do a lot for. Well, what it's going to do is just get more people out here. So if they don't build the infrastructure, I quit. I'm going to go personally. I'm going to say bomb it, but I'm going to turn the lights off or something.
It's more more of that good and bad, because it's like I've talked a little bit about what the Titan Stadium is going to look like. We did a tour and models and all that kind of stuff, and it's definitely really cool because they're going to have all the top notch stuff, but they're definitely going after the corporate money. More and making it harder and harder for
regular guys to get season tickets.
Go see a game and stuff. So you want that, you want to keep up, and you want to be the part of that. But it's tough too. So it's
And people don't know how bad that is. By the way, that's a real issue. Like I'm a huge soccer fan. My son's named after Ronaldo. I have Manchester United tattooed on my heart right here, like big time, right?
Gotcha.
And the World Cup, what people don't realize, and they'll like pan around and show the stadium, but it's such a international draw. It's about 70% corporate. The seating.
Really?
So like. You're a lifelong fan, and the World Cup finally comes to your country, or maybe you're willing to travel to another country. The chances of getting a ticket, and then by the way, the prices, because literally they have all these reserved seats for all their big sponsors and all the people they're trying to woo to become sponsors, and it is. I never knew that, and it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because as a kid, you wake up and your whole life you just want to get to a World Cup game, and then it's $5,000 a pop for a horrible seat because corporate Jones is taking up all the good stuff. So
yeah,
I hope that doesn't happen with
Me too.
with Titan Stadium.
Me too. And that's I'm a season ticket holder, and it's just been like this is my third year, I think. And really, the reason I became a season ticket holder was just like growing up, we didn't have a team, and so then I became a Titans fan as they were here the first few years, and then like eventually I'm like, man, that is something I'd like to do. You know, I may not go to every game, but like, you know, just and my kids are grown now; they're in their 20s. But
how many seats did you grab? A couple?
Just 2.
Yeah. Okay. So if they're in town, they could come, or
Absolutely.
obviously bring wifey.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's what it's been too. You know, my youngest son played baseball, played all through college, and just loves sports in general. So it's been a good way for us to like, hey, stop, go do something together, hang out, that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Do you, if you have a weekend when you're out of town, or do you give them away or selling them, or how?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I usually just give them to somebody. To use. Yeah.
My neighbor does that. He's got season tickets for NSC. And he knows my son and I are soccer fans, and very rarely, because he's a diehard too. But you know, if he doesn't never charges. Obviously, I give him something because it's tough to grab free stuff. But yeah, same thing. He's just like, hey, dude, we're not going to make the game.
Yeah,
I'm looking across the street, and your truck's there. So you want these tickets?
Yeah. And when I was younger adult, that was the only way I ever got to see any of that kind of stuff was somebody give me the tickets or whatever. Most of the so that's kind of cool. So
pay it forward, baby. Yeah. Absolutely.
Now that I've got them, somebody wants to go. Heck yeah, go enjoy it. Go do whatever, you know. So really enjoy it.
Yeah, we've done the whole box seating. You know, I've got some high-level dudes that come fly out here, and they want to do it big, of course. And so we've done a box at the Titan Stadium and a box at Geodis. And again, probably just size or how new Geodis is, but I think that the soccer stadium is even the quote-unquote like corporate boxes, I think that's done way better as well. So
I think it's soccer's taken off since they built that here. I mean, just the general interest in it. I'm sure you probably know more than I do.
My son plays, so that's actually why we came out here a year ahead of my wife because he had a tryout with NSC when he was 14. Okay. So like he's played overseas. Yeah, he can go pro. It just depends on if he wants. To me, MLS, unfortunately, it's the lowest paying professional athlete opportunity in the United States.
Wow.
The end. And it's because there's no love for soccer above and beyond until you leave. But if you leave this country, they're the highest paid athletes on the planet Earth. Like Ronaldo, Messi, and I could give you a list of names you might not recognize. Those guys make more than any of these big A-Rod contracts or these. Wow. Like the money that is spent on soccer, a.k.a. football, when you leave the U.S., blows any sport out of the water.
Gotcha.
But here, I know 3 guys on LA Galaxy back in the day. They shared an apartment. They're making 60, 70 grand, per season. And so like I told my son, look, MLS is cool. It's still like be proud of it if that's the route that we end up going. Yeah. But you better go get a job because it's not, you're not going to raise a family. And it is better now. I think the lowest level guys are in the 200, 250K range. Yeah. But most of the time it's just kind of dubbed a retirement league. Like you're looking at guys like Messi who are on their way out and he's still phenomenal. But for him to be almost at a retirement age and come out here and literally be the best one in the league, like there's no question. Yeah. So they have their marquee player for the sake of filling seats and selling jerseys. But, the reality is the MLS does not have the budget. It's almost, I wouldn't say embarrassing because you're still a professional athlete. You made it to the highest level possible in your country. But the salary and the stardom that comes with that in this, it's just like, not there. It's laughable.
Yeah. Is that just, being a little bit more connected to it, is that just the culture that we've just, in America, it's always been football, baseball, whatever.
Yeah, it's wherever the money
never
is.
Accepted it.
Yeah, because it's never gotten the love out here. So then, if you can't fill seats and monetize it, it's not going to continue to get money thrown at it. Yeah. What you're seeing now is a lot of the ex-players so a lot of ex-players love the U.S. for like a million other reasons, whether it's weather, the access to healthcare. Like there's a lot of reasons. Like Beckham, of course, he just built the one in Miami a couple of years ago. Messi actually has a piece of that now, but the reality is, you've got some big names in soccer from overseas that they're pouring money into it. So, but the money's still not being spent here locally, like by locals, So I just don't see it ever catching, like America's pastime. So baseball, and then of course football, I think has the dominant. It actually goes football, basketball, then baseball now. Okay. So basketball eclipsed baseball recently. Yeah. And football's still number one.
Gotcha.
But I mean, it's definitely gotten traction. I mean, the World Cup is going to be here in a couple of years. Yeah. We have the next World Cup, so that'll be cool, but I don't know what it's going to do for MLS. Yeah.
You almost need a generation of really young kids there needs to be
the crazy thing about what the U.S. produces soccer-wise, when you compare to the rest of the country, we actually produce some of the best athletes on the planet Earth. Okay. Which was just evidenced in the Olympics. Oh yeah. Because it's so laughable. My wife's doing the medal counter. It keeps popping up on the screen. I was like, okay, but take notice of every other athlete that's representing a foreign country. That's by the way, training at Florida State. That goes to there's a Tennessee Vol, or they're all doing their trade here. Which, by the way, and I'll get in and out of this real quick because we don't need to talk about soccer. The frustrating thing about playing an international sport. So my son just got we'll call it courted by
Yeah.
a D1 program, West Virginia University. They finished third in D1.
Wow.
And they hit him up, and they came and looked at him, and they kept looking at him. They said, hey, why don't you come to like a private tryout? So we went up to West Virginia, did a tryout. They walked them all around the campus, showed them all the facilities, just the stuff you see in the movies, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is, of their starting 11, so they roster 25, only 11 really play, plus 4 or 5 subs, but 80-something% are international kids. So you're not up against just the guy down the street who's also good. Like, let's look at football. If you get looked at by Bama or Tennessee, it's phenomenal. But you're still up against the guy that you played high school ball or you knew of him. He got now, and here's the other kicker. You ready for this? It's so disheartening for soccer kids, and this is for track and anything international.
Sure.
Not only are you getting passed up by a kid from like they had 4 kids from Ghana. So these kids are from Ghana. They're coming in as freshmen, but they're coming at 22 years old. So you've got a fully developed 22-year-old male who couldn't find a way to go pro in his country, and then he gets a call from West Virginia that says, hey, free room and board for 4 years, pretty American girls to hang out with.
Yeah.
You want to come hang out and see what America looks like? And they snatch them all day.
Yeah.
Clemson won the whole thing, actually, last year, and their starting lineup was 70% international.
Wow.
So it's a lot harder in soccer.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the route? Like, all this, and I barely get to MLS and make nothing, and I hardly get time in D1. It's just a completely different.
So it can be discouraging.
Game. It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
So speaking of kids, because that's my super son that I'm obsessed with, and I could talk all day about him. I want to make sure we get some talk time in around your foundation, like what you guys are building, because that's what really spoke to me the most, and I think the reason that we agreed to get in the same room is how can we help you develop this thing, get some eyeballs on this thing. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So my oldest son that I was talking about, that born when I was really young, Ryan.
Yep.
Yeah. So he passed away in 2016, May 31st, in a motorcycle accident, and we have we started searching pretty immediately for something to do in his memory. As I was coming out of my fog of a couple months of really just grief-stricken, shut down, lots of stories there, but just kind of, trying to figure out how to cope with grief and all the questioning everything in my life and trying to figure out how to move forward. We came across, people that were giving back and looking for ways to keep their loved one remembered. So when Ryan was born, he was born at Vanderbilt Hospital, and he needed 2 blood transfusions just to be alive. His mother, placenta separated. She was losing blood. He was losing blood, and so emergency C-section, and he had to have blood. He had AB negative blood, which is the rarest.
Yeah.
And so we decided to do a blood drive in his memory because basically we felt like, without the blood on hand at Vanderbilt, which the doctor said if you'd have been at a rural hospital in 94.
I was just about to say Vanderbilt's probably one of the top hospitals in the United States. So that's a big part of this.
So huge blessing that's where he was born. And, so we started doing that. We wouldn't have had 21 years with him to even enjoy who he was if we wouldn't have had the blood transfusions.
How long was he in NICU?
He actually responded so fast to the blood transfusions, rather that he
just got up and walked out of there.
I mean, not that, but I mean, it was a couple hours. We didn't get to see him for a couple hours, and then everything, really healthy. Not a lot of health problems, just truly a miracle to us because how it all happened, and we cherish the 21 years that we had. He was an amazing kid, as all mine are. But just
sports or what was his thing?
He was into music. He was a self-taught, played guitar, played a couple other things, and just loved to. Probably 15, 16 years old, started just buying sheet music and downloading sheet music and just teaching himself how to play, which I don't have.
You don't know where he got that from? Not your dad either.
I can't play anything.
Yeah.
So but he just enjoyed it. And he was just an extremely adventurous kid. He had been to. I don't know, by 21, he had been to like 6 states on his own. A couple days after he got his driver's license, he called me and was like, hey, I'm going to be a little late getting home. And I was like, all right, what are you doing? He's like, I'm in Ohio.
Wow.
I was like, what?
That's an 8-hour drive.
He's just like, yeah, me and a couple of buddies just wanted to go check something out. It's like I tell people all the time from like a dad perspective, kid was crazy, drove me insane, never had a plan of what the future was going to be. But as an adventurous kid, man, he just loved to live life. And that's what I always saw, and so many stories of everybody that he was around. And so that's a big reason we keep his his honor alive, and we talk a lot about it. I've been amazed, and all of my kids, we've talked forever. There was this thing he used to always have such an outlook, and I mean, I remember him being like 14 years old and saying something to me one day about like, dude, just do it today. Who knows if we're going to be here tomorrow? He would just constantly talk about life's short. Who knows what the future holds? Do it today. Other kids in the family are already talking about like savings accounts. Couldn't get him to save a dime. And he was just like, literally just had this mindset at like 17, 18, can't take it with you when you go.
Would you consider yourself a little like play it safe, plan for the future, conserve type?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Always have been. And
so did he inspire you in any way though? Because that's polar
so much.
opposite, right? Which I think we all have at least one child. Those of you that have children, I have my one that I say challenges me.
Yeah.
But I've noticed over the years that's the one I can learn the most from, is the one that like is completely opposite for me, has the most to teach me.
Yeah. I mean, I used to say all the time, like I just, I envied his approach to everything so much, because I've always been very much like, my wife has to remind me like, hey, today's not the end of the world if I have a bad day or a bad month in sales. She's like, hey, the lights are on, like we're fine, dude. Like it's okay, because I'm very much that like planner, worry about everything, and my wife's much more relaxed and has good perspective.
Maybe not as aggressive as Ryan was with Attack in Life, but still more of the like, okay.
Yeah, Ryan was live big.
Yeah.
Ryan was like, I mean, there's tons of stories I could tell you with his friends, talking about building bonfires. And Ryan was like the guy in the background, like, more wood. Just keep building it bigger. They're like freezing to death, talking about it's like, the wind chill's like 10 below or something. And he's just like, do more. Let's go more places. And the really cool thing now is, real briefly, we do a blood drive every year. We just had it August 3rd, and it's been amazing. Red Cross has partnered with us, and
is this in downtown Nashville or out in Murfreesboro?
We do it in Murfreesboro.
Okay.
Out at the fountains, and this year was the biggest one we've had in 8 years.
Yeah. It's only going to get bigger, brother.
Oh, I can't wait. And first 2 years we did it, our Red Cross rep said, hey man, this is going to be amazing. We love doing these kind of things. First year or two, you're going to have a lot of people that love you, a lot of people that work with you that are going to come, a lot of people that knew Ryan that are going to come. And then probably year 3, year 4, it'll fizzle. We'll team you up with a church. We'll team you up with somebody. They're having a drive. You can, mention Ryan and kind of team up. And so one of the things we take great pride in is this is the 8th year, and it's a completely private standalone drive that we've done, gotten bigger and bigger every year. So it's been
how are you
really,
currently
really cool.
getting that word out, and what can we do to help you? Like, how can like the listeners, be a part of this? And I don't know how many local I have, because I'm fairly new here, but
sure.
Or is there digital ways to support? Is there ways my guys all over the country can help? So what are we doing?
So up to this point, we haven't really reached out for a lot of different stuff before this one blood drive, and we're really trying to build it a little bit. So there's a Facebook page that's Give Life for Ryan that we monitor and we do stuff, and we're trying to step into doing a little bit more. There's an app with the Red Cross that you can join a team. So wherever you are in the country, you can give blood anywhere, and you're part of that team, and it kind of keeps a tally, kind of just to show how many lives we've affected. So that's something that people can do.
So if you're in Cali and you want to go give blood, but you're part of team
Give Life
to Ryan, right? Then and it counts towards his
his kind of overall goals. And, it just kind of gives people something to cling to and a cause to have. So it's really cool. And that's what what's been so great and kind of inspired us to do more with the blood drive, and maybe look at things we can do throughout the year. I had a lady come up to me this year that the venue that we use in the fountains, she got married. She said, I got married in this building during your last year's blood drive. We were setting up for our wedding upstairs, and I saw the sign and was kind of like, what's going on down here? And she said her and her father had donated blood for years, and then she had some medical stuff that kept her from doing it. It was kind of a little thing that they had always done. And as she got through the medical stuff, her dad just kept saying, hey, I really wish you'd get back to that. I've always really liked it, and I wish you had a cause to give to. And so long story short, she comes up to me, and she's like, this is my cause. So I'm here this year. I'll be here every year going forward, and I'll tell all kinds of people about it.
Wow.
So that kind of stuff has, really opened my eyes to, it's been such a great thing for the local community, and been so great for some people that have, drove back in every year for the blood drive and that kind of stuff. But there's such a need, and it can be used in so many ways that I'm like, I don't feel like we're doing as much as we can. So we're really trying to look for ways to expand and to make more people aware, and just to, be aware of his story. The header picture on our Facebook page is Ryan right after he gave blood, all wrapped up and everything. So it's a cause that was near and dear to his heart, because he knew his story, knew that he had to have blood transfusion. So So just things like that we can do to.
So people
to make a
donate
difference.
and donate blood or give blood, or is it just blood? Like,
Yep.
you know, I'm picturing this event. Did people just line up and put their arm out and say,
Yeah.
let's dance, or what? You know what I mean?
So yeah, it's in conjunction with Red Cross. So we have this huge venue that we rent out.
Okay.
And then Red Cross usually has 8 to 10 beds. And so they come in, there's a registration process. People register before the day, and then we also take walk-ins. But they register, come in, answer the little questions that you have to have, and then they just run you through, hook you up, give blood, and then you're out. We do shirts every year with the Give Life for Ryan logo on it, and we do a different color shirt every year.
Nice.
And we've had a couple sponsors that have been there since day one that have enabled us to get good quality shirts that people enjoy wearing.
How many of those are you selling them, I assume, or giving them out?
We just give them out.
How many of
Completely
those?
free.
How many of those are you?
I think we.
How many do you have on deck? Because I'm thinking I could solve that problem.
Oh,
real
we've
quick.
got a few, and we can
Okay.
get more.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, absolutely love them. Yeah, I think we had about 800 shirts this year that we gave
Nice.
out. So I mean, we
Nice.
give them to people that just show up, people
Sure.
that come to support. And
I got a
it's-
question you could probably answer because I get denied a lot for the tattoo thing.
Yeah.
But is there a time? I want to say it's a time question. Like, have you had a tattoo in the last X amount of years or
Yeah,
something? Right?
it's all state by state.
Oh, okay.
So-
So I wouldn't even know Tennessee rules.
Yeah.
So what's
And-
the breakdown for me?
If you get one in Tennessee, 24 hours later you can give blood.
No way.
Yeah, because of the sterilization process here is
That's a
really
little
high.
suspect. I don't know.
I know. That's what people tell me all the time. Like, are you sure? But then there's
you should create your own questionnaire there for that.
no
Like,
doubt.
Yeah.
There's one state, and I hate to like call a state out, but I have to go on the Red Cross website. I want to say it's like Arizona, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
That it's like a three-way wait period after you get a tattoo in Arizona or wherever it is before you can give. And I'm like, man, what are they just? Only you can get a tattoo in a garage there or something like
Yeah.
that. It's like crazy.
Wow.
But yeah, Tennessee's like 24 hours later because I've got a couple you just can't see them
Yeah.
when we're sitting here. But yeah, so people ask that question all the time, and then like different medications, you know.
Yeah, I can't remember
on
the
or
questions.
off.
I just know the one that would disqualify
Yeah.
my wife and I. Like, anybody like, yeah, just that one disqualifies us. Usually, I mean, I haven't had a tattoo in probably. Well, I have my lip tattoo. Anyway, I'm
Yeah.
definitely. Obviously, I
become-
definitely haven't had one in 24 hours, so I'm good in
So, yeah.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
But
So
that's
it all
interesting.
depends on that state and how they rank their sterilization process,
Wow.
I guess, to when you can go back. So yeah, some of them are a month, some of them are 6 months. So
But
it just
again,
depends.
I'll push back on that and say, okay, you roll out these quote unquote sterilization procedures statewide, but then again, let's use checks and balances. Let's use
Sure.
your term. Who's checking this?
Yeah.
Like, there's guys getting tattoos in prison and then
Yeah.
donating
Yeah.
blood because they can get by. You know
That's
what I
why
mean?
some people are like, I'm going to donate blood today. I mean, they test it anyways. They're
Yeah.
like, they'll take my blood today. If they don't use it, yeah. I'm just like, they're like, I'm not going to figure out all the different, did I do this today?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
did I go to this
I mean,
country
obviously,
on this day?
it's
So-
very integrity based, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They're testing it. They're letting you know that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. So yeah. But it's been amazing.
So Give Life for Ryan. I want to make
Yeah.
sure we get this right. So Give
Absolutely.
Life for Ryan. I'll make sure if there's some links or anything that we need to
Sure.
attach to the bottom of this when we post it. I do want to hit you with one question. This is like a question we ask all of our guests. We have a bit of a theme here. You can see it behind my big head. My number one word, and I drop a lot of F-bombs if you ever hear me speak, but it's feedback. I think everything in this world is just like, how do you process feedback? How important is feedback to you? Your ability to handle feedback. So, like, what is that word, when I just keep saying it 8 times right now, what does that word mean to you? How does it show up in your world? Like, just give me your opinion on that word.
Yeah.
Ready, set, go.
I think over the last couple of years, I've learned to embrace that word more than ever before. I probably, like you said, kind of a planner, keep everything, nobody's rocking the boat, then just keep things moving in a forward direction. But as I've matured a little bit, gotten a little bit older, and been able to look back, feedback's monumental to me. Like I said, I created a team a couple of years ago, and I'm constantly encouraging them in so many different ways to give feedback, to feel comfortable saying,
To
I
each
think-
other or to you or all those things?
all those things.
Okay.
All those things. So my team, we meet once a day in the morning, once a day in the afternoon, just to go over some quick hits. But I'm constantly saying, make sure you talk to him about that, get some feedback on that. Let's talk about it. And then when I roll out stuff, so I'm a really big systems guy because I feel like you have to be.
Sure.
And so I get feedback, and I'm telling them all the time, I may not flip around and change everything that we're doing, but I want to hear what you think about it because you're the one making the call. So like with the Excel spreadsheets and that kind of stuff, I may take what you designed and I say, I want to do it this way, but if you see that this might be different, tell me so I can.
Yeah, because you put them in that
I wanna
seat for a
adjust.
reason, and you
Yeah.
respect their opinion. So the reality is, and what I'm hearing is, you're encouraging feedback from your team, your staff, and you don't know if it's going to be positive or negative. And I think, again, that's another thing that separates you from a lot of business owners I come across is most of us avoid feedback, and we are, I wouldn't say rule with an iron fist, but it's like, hey, we're rolling this out. Like, this is just how it's
Yeah.
going. Shut up and deal. and very few, but the guys that are making the correct pivots and course corrections, it's because they're getting feedback from people that they trust, and they're willing to. We call it pulling your card.
Yeah.
Like if you've got someone on your team that can pull your card and say, "Hey, that was a bad move," or "Hey," even on a energy, the way that you showed up in that meeting, like, "Hey, it really offended us," or whatever.
Yeah.
But most men avoid that because they got egos. You know what I mean? And they're like, I don't really want to welcome. I wouldn't even say negative feedback. There's no negative feedback. It's just feedback. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great because I got a mentor that's been talking to me, and she knows one of the people that's on my team really well, and she constantly says she needs to make you more accountable. She needs to be aware of what's going on in the surroundings because that's her job. While you're running from place to place and she's got your schedule marked down to where you're going to show up and make this happen, she needs to be able to look from the outside and say, that's not how you wanted to show up.
Oof.
Or that's not, yeah.
How do you, in the moment, how do you receive that from, we'll call it a subordinate, but you have an employee. Her job is to basically pull your card, which is probably not easy for her, by the way, at least the first few, however many times.
Sure.
How do you actually receive that live in the moment when she's like, "Hey, Chief, you were supposed to be over here at 2.
Yeah.
Where we at?" You know what I mean?
I hope I'm getting a lot better at it. And that's something we're going to talk about because it's very new to me. And I'd say in the last 6-12 months of just really asking for that feedback and really trying to be receptive.
And then process it. And then make it, like you said, make the next decision based off that feedback.
And I feel like I need to because the people that I've had mentoring me or people I've talked to that have been successful trying to surround myself with, that's the feedback that they're giving. That's the advice that they're giving. So I'm like, there's something to that. I need to be more receptive to that. And I was just thinking,
what about giving it? How are you at giving? Because then here's the other side of the coin. Let's say you get better or almost master receiving the feedback.
Mm-hmm.
But like a lot of guys can't dole it out because they don't want to be the one to offend someone, right? So like, how are you at dishing the feedback? Well, and by the way, I'll preface that with, if they get good at giving it out, because it's not that they're not afraid of that, it's that they maybe lack the tact on giving. So they can be too good at giving feedback from another place, right? So anyway, how are you at doling out the feedback?
I feel like I'm pretty weak in that area.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I love that you own that, by the way.
I honestly do. I feel like it's not something I'm at a strength at all and that I'm working on. And I think one of the biggest places that I've realized how vital it is at home. With me and my wife and our marriage, we've started talking more and more about I'm trying to think of a exact situation, but just like, how do you think that went? How do you think what these changes that we're making? Because I have my business and it's mortgages, but my wife's involved in kind of everything that we do. So we talk about everything. And so when I'm talking to her, I'm like, hey, we're doing this. Does that align with what we've been talking about, where we want to go now that we've got grandkids and we want to travel or we want to do this? Are you okay with me committing to this? And I think we've always had great communication. I mean, married.
Yeah, and you're looking for her honest feedback because she might say no because that's going to strap you to the office chair an extra 12 hours a month, and we've got vacation plans.
Yeah, and I think she's even had times where she's just been like, I want to be the supportive wife. So we've had some real conversations over the last year, and I think it's maturity. But just over the last year of I want you to be all in and support everything that I do. But if you see something that sucks, tell me it does. Or if you see something that's going down a road, she's always been my sounding board.
But also be able to tell you with tact, because again, I'm going to ask all my members and listeners, they're usually men, but like, can you pull your wife's card? Like, can you actually, and let's go real personal. Can you tell your wife, hey, you kind of slacking on your fitness? Like, how's that going to land?
Sure.
I have no idea, right? But I'm just asking questions. Like, think about a time when you've actually approached your wife on something that you felt either she didn't do well, she could do better. It's out of alignment with where you guys are going. How do you even get that out of your mouth? You know what I mean? And then obviously it varies heavily based on like the quote unquote dynamic of that relationship. Yeah. But you nailed it though. It's maturity in the relationship. And the biggest tip I give people on feedback is facts over feelings. Mm-hmm. Because like, for example, let's say that assistant comes to you or whatever her role is, I apologize, and says, hey, I need to pull your card here. You were supposed to do this, and I look bad, right? Because if I don't hold you accountable, why are you even hiring me? Mm-hmm. And you feel some kind of way, you feel triggered because like, who the heck are you, lady? You know what I mean? Sure. If you go straight to feelings world, then you can not really properly process. But the facts where you said you would be here at this time, it's on your calendar. You hired her to manage your calendar and get you places, so you guys can represent your brand, whatever.
Yeah.
And the facts are you did not execute.
Yeah.
And so sit with those facts, right? And so it's a crazy world because the instant reaction is just to go straight to the world of feelings. And the best way to process feedback is what are the absolute, strip everything from this, just facts.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's amazing what you were just saying. Not only because when you started asking me about feedback, I immediately went to me receiving it.
Yeah.
Didn't you really think about how am I giving it?
Yeah.
So then there's both sides of that.
Yeah,
You know?
the two questions are:
Yeah.
do you give it regularly, and then how are you giving it? Because there's a lot of it's tough. Like I just said, how do you actually approach? Because it's a fair. It might not be fair. I probably get pushback on this. You should never worry about your wife gaining some weight. I'm like, it's not even really about the weight gain as much as that represents maybe a lack of discipline in an area that could be showing up elsewhere. Whatever it is, however you want to approach it, you should have that level with your wife where you could, because she should do the same. Hey, dude, like, you haven't been doing X, Y, and Z like you said you would, and like how old you would have executed. Like, is there something going on? Let's chop it up. Let's have a conversation. Like, anyway, it's to me, feedback is and feedback is in a million forms. You know,
Sure.
You're gonna process feedback when you leave this podcast. It's just driving. You know,
Yeah.
How are you gonna process it? Are you gonna let it in? You know, so yeah, man.
Extremely interesting.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about it that way, and I think that'll give me something to work on. Just, how I give feedback, because I honestly am very weak at giving feedback. A lot of times I feel like I could get there, but I don't want to.
Is the story that you don't want to offend, right? Because that's the most.
I think that's
exact,
probably
right?
that's probably the biggest
I don't want to
one.
hurt this lady's feelings or this guy's feelings. Yeah.
Whether it be wife, team member, whatever, they're on board.
Here's my
I've
experience.
got their buy-in.
Here's my experience. When done correctly, it's one of the most powerful things you can do, because they needed to hear it. You know that. They come to the realization that they needed to hear it. It'll benefit them if they process it correctly, and they'd rather hear it from somebody they respect, right, love, and so the world will give them that feedback eventually in some form or another. So best they hear it from you in a manner that serves them, and they could say thank you, and then you can develop that healthy dynamic of being able to both give feedback and receive feedback. I
love it.
So it sounds like you gotta get feedback on your feedback. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey,
Exactly.
how am I delivering? So. Well, cool, brother. We're going to wrap up because we're pushing the old time barrier. I want to thank you for coming on. I want to make sure it is Give Life for Ryan. Is it .com? Do you have the domain, or is
Not
it
yet.
just a Facebook page?
That's where we're actually going to look at expanding this year. Right
Okay.
now it's just a Facebook page and a lot of posts and things we talk about, but there'll be a website pretty soon.
Okay, so my man Jamie Steelman, Give Life for Ryan. Look it up on Facebook. Donate some blood. Buy some shirts or get a free shirt, but just give him money because I said so. What's the mortgage? Where do they find you in the mortgage world if they want to do house things?
Yeah, JamieStillman.com.
JamieStillman.com, all your mortgage needs as well. So I want to thank you for coming on. I love your story. I love what you're about. I love that you put people first and let the rest take care of itself. Obviously, it's tough to hear about your son, but I love every single way you frame that up was about the 21 years you had with him, how he lived life to the fullest, how he taught you some things, which is always powerful as a parent to be able to learn from our children. I just thank you for coming on. I thank you for being you, brother.
Thank you so much, man. I really enjoyed it. Really appreciate you.
Thank you. So that's a wrap for us. Feedback, Nick Alfano. This episode will drop when it drops. Catch you on the other side.